You're listening to a 3CR podcast created in the studios of independent community radio station 3CR in Melbourne, Australia. For more information, go to allthews.3cr.org.au.
Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode.
Bringing you the news and views and the untold side of the Palestinian struggle for freedom from a Palestinian perspective.
Good morning, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Palestine Remembered. We're live in studio today. I'm joined by my co-host, executive producer, activist extraordinaire. You won't recognise him. He's got a beard, so he's gone an undercover brother. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Nasser. Good morning, listeners. This is pretty exciting. It's been a while.
It's been too long. It's been too long, Rob, but we're all dealing with everything we can. You know, there's no textbook, no guidebook, how to act, how to work, how to live through a genocide, but we're all doing our bit.
And how are you going?
Every day is another day, but I get little bits of micro recharges, and I had a fantastic recharge last night. The Liberty Victoria Awards were on last night, where we're honoured some amazing human beings, but it was a Liberty Victoria Volunteer Human Rights Award dinner, and Antoinette Lattouf won the main award, which was fantastic.
Well deserved.
Yeah, indeed. But we should go to what's happening in Palestine, day 406 of this ongoing genocide, day 406. And some movement. Don't forget, make sure you get to your rally, wherever that rally might be, and tomorrow, 12 o'clock at the State Library, join us there.
Just on that number, 406, it's quite deceptive because it obviously has been going a long time. I got introduced to the whole Gaza thing in 2014 because it was exactly this, except the numbers.
Yep.
The numbers have just changed. They're getting greater and greater. But I mean, most of our listeners will know that 406 is basically the time that the world woke up to see Israel for what it actually is.
Yeah.
So,
day 406 of the escalation of genocide. 4,000 days since 2014 and 76 years of ongoing genocide and disaster. But as you said, world waking up, Rob, the veneer is off. The veneer is off. Everybody knows now. Nobody can say they don't know. And Israel's veneer of respectability, of normalcy, has been exposed, and it's been exposed because of the genocide, but it's exposed also because of the apologists for Israel. It's exposed because of the footy fans, football fans, read into that, Zionist thugs, hooligans, that, you know, their rampage was disrupted. Their rioting was disrupted by, people in Amsterdam of Arabic ancestry, but also the proud people of Amsterdam. You know, lots of our allies there said no to Zionist thugs and hooligans.
and unfortunately the mainstream media, they run the story that's fake and they never run the story that's a retract. And that's always been the way that mainstream work.
Yep.
They run with a terrible headline. They know it's wrong. Same with Israel. Yep. And because they know the world doesn't look for the retraction. No. They don't care. The damage is done.
And increasingly making the mainstream media redundant. The youth are going beyond that. And if you want a more, the most pressing example of that is the 40 beheaded babies. So Israel went out hard, beheaded babies. President Biden said he's seen the pictures. Every leader in the West said this is, abhorrent and, we've got to get rid of Hamas and all these things. In the end, not a single beheaded baby. Not a single beheaded baby. There were no beheaded babies. No babies in ovens, no babies cut from wombs, no breast cut off, no systematic rapes. All of the lies that manufactured the consent were spewed by a complicit Western media, a complicit Western leadership with no retraction. The reality is, because that drenched every mainstream media source and leadership role, lay people went, okay, they can do whatever they want, and then turned off. So they turned off on October 15, October 20, October 30, whenever it might have been, and haven't re-engaged because they went beheaded babies. I'm still talking to people today that are going, really? That was fake? I'm actually still talking to people, like lay people, not our people, of course, nobody listening to this show, but lay people and going, yeah, they lied. And as we know, every one of these accusations ends up being a confession, because everything that they said that the Palestinians did, the Israelis have done in the past 406 days, and in fact 76 years.
I mean, the abuse that we do get is that we're terror supporters, we're rape supporters, we're baby killer supporters, and that just shows me the ignorance of the ill-informed, blindly supporting of Israel. They're still using that, and it makes them look so stupid. So stupid.
Yeah, so stupid. Look, and the good thing, our advocacy, our efforts, our protests are working. Just during the week, we had the Australia change its vote at the UN. And before we talk about that, I think it's important to talk about, Australia's leading Zionist propaganda group. There's a whole bunch of them, ECAJ and AJAC and the Executive Council Australian Jury and a whole bunch of different organisations. But the actual leadership crew, the best of these people, the actual people that represent Zionism for what it is, and I imagine where all of these other groups get their talking points from, is the Australian Jewish Association. This is the most robust and honest Australian Zionist organisation, the Australian Jewish Association. They most represent what Zionism actually is. So if you really want to know what Zionism is, please go to the Australian Jewish Association Twitter account and really, really look at them. So with the Australia voting for permanent sovereignty of the Palestinians, and if you believe in a two-state solution, which I don't, unashamedly do not believe in a two-state solution, if you go to their website, they'll talk about this UN vote, which talks about Palestinians having sovereignty over their lands that Australia has abstained from in the past and not voted, and once voted no, that we changed our vote and voted yes to. The Australian Jewish Association, the peak Zionist organisation, the leadership of what Zionism is in Australia and around the world, called this, in their tweet, breaking. Australia formally rewards jihadist terrorism and anti-Semitism, gross betrayal of Israel and the Jewish community, and destruction of the remaining bipartisanship on Middle East policy. Australia has voted for, quote, permanent sovereignty for Palestinians over Judea and Samaria, Gaza, Golan Heights, which includes the old city of Jerusalem. This shocking betrayal will also fuel and embolden the extremist terror-supporting activism on our universities and streets, and even encourage more violence against the Jewish community. There has never been a more hostile and anti-Israeli government in Australia. So that's the Australian Jewish Association, the leader of the Zionist movement in Australia. So please make sure you go along there and have a read as to what Zionism actually is.
The fact that they don't use West Bank in their statement, that's blatantly saying that they don't believe that Palestine basically exists in the occupied West Bank. They refuse to acknowledge it.
To be fair, they have it in brackets. I just didn't read it.
They had the West Bank in brackets.
Yeah. But you are right. They don't think that there's anything such thing as a Palestinian. There's no such thing as Palestine. Jordan is Palestine, is the AJA line.
I mean, the fact that they're using the word Judea and Samaria, to me, is enough to say that they do not acknowledge the West Bank. That they shouldn't be using those words. And they educate their children that this is Judea and Samaria. So they grow up thinking that there's no occupied West Bank, that this is our land.
Mm-mm. I mean, there's a very reasonable argument for, based on those sorts of stories, for Italians to say, well, the Romans were there, it's actually Italy, and then for Phoenicians to say, well, we were there, and the Canaanites to say, we were there, and, Moses left Egypt with Jewish tribes, they can say Egypt is Israel. I mean, it's, maybe we could all just be human beings.
No, that would be unacceptable.
How about we all just be human beings? Anyway, to the UN vote, we welcome this change. It's a recognition, number one, of Palestinian sovereignty over that land, but also recognition of all our work, all the petitions we've signed, all the MP engagements, all the protests, all of our work. But it also, leading into the next bit of this segment, into perhaps Australia looking to differentiate itself from the US with the incoming Trump administration. Because I know, Rob, you and I were talking about what's it going to look like.
And what does it mean? What does the American election and Trump coming in look like? Because to me, it looks really ugly, really scary. What does it mean for the Palestinians moving forward?
There's nothing worse than genocide. There's nothing worse than genocide. There is no difference. 406 days to this. 3 days ago, the 30-day expiration of a letter from President Biden to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying, in 30 days, if you haven't let more aid in, we're going to start limiting military supplies. That date expired. There's been no decrease in military supplies. Overnight, Israel delivered some aid to a section of northern Gaza, and less than an hour later bombed that delivery point and set it on fire, killing people and destroying the aid. There's been no difference. There is no difference between the Democrats, we believe in peace, but here's all the guns you need, and Donald Trump saying, here's all the guns you need. In the end, Zionism gets all the guns you need. I would argue there is a quote-unquote, as painful as this is, there is a benefit for that mask of what US imperialism, US hegemony, underpinned by US capitalism, gets exposed to the rest of the world, that there is no difference between those two major parties on the question of Palestine, but on the question of so many other fights, indigenous rights, water rights, the climate, etc., etc., etc. Also, one of the things that I imagine he'll be advancing, and as we saw again during the week, Ben Smotrich, the finance minister, I think, in the Israeli Knesset, he said he'll be advancing plans for sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. And the incoming US ambassador believes there's, no such thing as a Palestinian.
You don't exist.
You don't exist, yeah. And that the Trump administration will advance, his plans for the new, whatever that new Middle East and what it might look like, and the Abraham Accords, etc., and that he might recognize Israeli sovereignty over the whole of Judea, Samaria, West Bank. And can I tell you something? Personally, I'd welcome it. Make it all Israel. Today, we have, I don't have a problem with it, but today there is actually some people who go, it's not apartheid. I don't know how they can say it's not apartheid, but there are people who say it's not apartheid. Well, if the whole area becomes Israel, America can recognize it. And that's, if America does, then that's the world. If the whole area is Israel and only half the people get to vote, then it'll be a tough time convincing me that it's not apartheid. Yeah. Number one. Number two, that will hasten the end and the demise of the sycophantic, Vichy Palestinian Authority. Because, what sort of authority are you if Israel... We don't need a Palestinian Authority if the whole place is Israel. We can, demolish that entity and all of the sycophants in there that are taking money to oppress their own people, and put the responsibility of the non-citizen residents of this state back onto the oppressive force, the occupation force, the Zionist entity that controls them.
It is a one state already, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's a one state with just two separate rules for two different people. Yep. And I don't think a lot of people realise that. Those fighting for a one state or a two state, it is already a one state.
It is already a one state, absolutely. From the river to the sea, there is one controlling entity and two sets of rules. Undeniable. I'm really excited. We have the world premiere of a brand new song by the amazing Phil Monsour. There'll be a link in the podcast, so make sure you go download this and share it with your friends and put it in your Spotify and whatever other listening services you might have. It's called Which Side Are You On? Which Side Are You On? So this is Phil Monsour, Ethan Enoch, Sophie Nishizawa and Matt Hsu. Just the most brilliant song and fantastic video clip. Thanks very much, Phil, for sending this in, and please enjoy, and we'll be right back after this song.
Yeah, check. Everybody's gotta pick your side. These war crimes ain't justified. They're all drunk with lies, gunned up when they occupy. They colonize and we wonder why we get undermined. They fear truth when it comes to light. We're just waiting for the sun to rise. Can't run nor hide. We stand strong as they play the game. Yeah, forced to resist like we're made to rage. They blame us for the smoke, they create the flames. You stay linked to its name, it remains the same.
Refugees in the camps for over 70 years. The right to return's been promised, they're still waiting to go home. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you on? Surrounded by an apartheid wall, blocking out the sun. Humiliated at checkpoints, staring down the barrel of their guns. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you on? Gaza is a death camp. What happened to never again? Are you on the side to break the siege? Set those people free. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you on? Bombing schools and hospitals, it's a terrible crime. Our politicians, they cheer it on. The death toll, it does climb. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you on?
Check. What's a stone to a boulder? A farmer to a soldier. This world has made my heart a little colder. The art is the beholder, searching for a reason. A child is called a terrorist before it's even teething, before it's even breathing. A murderers are chosen. The imagery is Persian, the rest is unspoken. They muddy up the waters and then dimming down your focus. Manipulate with lies, initiate devotion. Convinced it's all hopeless, but oppressors aren't immortal. Committing genocide, yet we're asked to be cordial. Trying to be polite means I'm blind to the torture. Cause they ain't playing nice, they're really trying to force you. They greet you with a sword and kill you with a smile. 100 years later, they wanna reconcile. Offended when I'm wild, that's the only same reaction. How can I convince you if you never had compassion? We're getting to the action cause the system here is set. It's taking what it wants and they don't want nobody left. They break their own rules and create their own debts. They look you in the eyes and label you a threat, but really it's projection. Believe in their deception. Israel was created for colonial protection. Australia reflects it, arms it with their weapons. They can see themselves in their conception. A mutual investment. The West is on an IV. They know the end is nearing. There's F-35 parts of ferret engineering. They deal him to the IOF and sell him for the clearance. The PM's at the wheel, but he ain't the one steering.
Freedom won't come easy. We all must decide. Are we on the side of peace and justice or complicit in a genocide? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you on? 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 Tell me, which side are you on? 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 Tell me, which side are you on? 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 Tell me, which side are you on? 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 Tell me, which side are you on? Which side are you on? We demand sanctions, and we demand sanctions now. Which side are you on?
We have a right to be in public space, undertaking political activity. That is not something that people should be telling us that we can't do.
Multiple actions rolling over months and years and create huge sustained pressure of social change.
And what we're seeing around the country right now is increasing repression of protests.
Protest works. That's why I think we're seeing it criminalised all over the place.
3CR. Stay tuned, stay radical.
Welcome back, listeners. Again, that was Which Side Are You On by the amazing Phil Monsour, but joined by Ethan, Sophie and Matt. So make sure you go to the podcast, download that, add that to your streaming services. We were just talking whilst we were listening to that song about the gaslighting that and the oppressive systems of the state. And there's no greater example of that than what's happened to our brother Hash Tayeh. If we remember, a year and a bit ago, his store was firebombed. What hasn't been reported, what hasn't been spoken about, is the 2 and a bit weeks before his store was bombed, the incessant attacks the store had, that had been pallets had been slingshotted into his shop front, people were running in and slamming the counter, yelling at his staff, many of them teenage boys and girls, some of them Jews, saying, "You work for a terrorist, how can you work here?" Every morning the manager would open the store and find things slipped under the door. All of the complaints that were logged with the police, no action. His store is then firebombed. Within a matter of hours, the police rule out hate crime. The police rule out it's a hate crime, that it's not racially motivated, in fact. And for a year, it's been over a year now, they caught the guy confessed. And in his interview with an undercover police officer, he spoke and he said words to the effect of that the person that paid him, it was about the overseas conflict. And in The Age, they said the motivation behind the arson was related to the conflict overseas between Palestine and Israel. And this was a summary of the conversation between the alleged offender and an undercover police officer. So the police have known that was there. On top of that, post that firebombing, Hash has still continually received threats, intimidation, intervention orders, and action in the Anti-Discrimination Commission. He's been arrested and interviewed about inciting violence. There was a pig's heart left at the front of one of his stores. The police said that's just littering.
Excuse me?
That was just littering. Even though he gave them the store video of these women dumping a bloodied pig's heart in front of a Muslim man's store. You know, that's just littering. Then his own home was firebombed, and he has had to go into hiding with his wife and young child. The fire thankfully didn't catch a hold, but it exploded underneath the bedroom window of his 2-year-old son. All this is going on. And now the firebombing of his home has been closed. It's a cold case now. It's closed. No outcry, no senator has spoken about it, no MP has spoken about it. He's had to reach out to his own MP and say, "Can you advocate for me? Are you seeing what's going? I know that I'm a brown guy with a funny name and a funny skin tone and a different religion, but I'm an Australian too, to get any form of justice." Just shameful. Just shameful. And sadly, that's what brown people, coloured people, our black brothers and sisters have come to expect from the police and from the apparatus of the state, and it's absolutely shameful. But we want to end, we've got a few minutes left, on some positives, Rob.
A lot of the rhetoric is that Israel is imploding and Israel was the only thing that could destroy itself. But I think what is forgotten is the steadfastness to the courageous Palestinians that have outlasted Israel for so many years. And it's proof, it's their land, their family's land, that's been in their name for generations. And for a colonialist entity to come in and try and take that, it's impossible. You are not going to be able to take it. But Israel is only imploding because of the Palestinian courageousness that they have. They are an incredible people. They are incredibly strong. They are incredibly loving people. And they will be free soon enough. And it will be because of their strength. And I think that's one thing that is not remembered enough. It is they are strong, courageous, beautiful, lovely people.
Beautifully said. And it's true of all Indigenous people. It's true of all Indigenous people. It's true of our sister, Senator Lydia Thorpe, yelling at their king, "You are not my king. I did not give you sovereignty over this land. You are not welcome." It's true of the Maori Party during the week in Aotearoa, when the far-right government there is advancing laws to undo their treaty. We saw the most courageous young Maori woman, she's a co-leader of the Maori Party, Hana Reuter Maipai Clark, who tore up a copy of the proposed treaty's principles bill and led the most magnificent haka on that parliament floor. And it's gone viral all over the world. And that Indigenous spirit from this colony to that to Palestine is unbreakable. You cannot defeat a people whose strength comes from the land that their ancestors toiled for the past thousands and thousands of years. And increasingly, the world is seeing it for what it is and being uplifted by the resilience and steadfastness of the Palestinian people.
And just quickly, what can people do to get involved, those that are not? For a person that is just found out about what's going on, what do you suggest they do?
wherever you are on this continent, wherever you are in the world, there is definitely a Palestinian solidarity group near you. There is definitely one. So Google is your friend, or whatever search engine you might use. And never before has the ability to be informed been so easy. There's a generation older than me. I'm in my 50s. The 60s and 70-year-olds, they got brought up on this wonderful mythology that this was a land without people, for a people without a land, and that was a swamp, and that these kibbutzes, these socialist enterprises for the survivors of the Holocaust, was this wonderful socialist ideal, and come along to Israel. And there's many 70-year-olds that I've met that have spent, their 18s and 20s in kibbutzes back in the 50s, and they came back and went, they were lying. But there's also people that didn't go to the kibbutz, that watched Exodus with Paul Newman, and they read Peter Ustinov's book and went, this is a miracle. This is a miracle. There's actually an Australian senator from the Liberal Party who calls Israel a modern miracle. But this is the same person who voted against, a voice, like a nothing, nowhere near what our blackfellas deserve, voted against a voice, not for any other good principles, but,
It is miraculous. It's been able to do what it's done, let's be honest. The fact that the world's allow it.
Well, the world allows it, Rob, because that's what the world is. And when we say the world, we're not talking about the majority of the world. We're not talking about the global south. We're talking about the white world. The white world. I had a friend of mine just come back from a trip to France, and she said, it's just amazing. I'm walking around the streets looking at all the beautiful architecture and everything. I said, you know how much gold France has got? France has got the third largest reserves of gold. She goes, well, that's, obviously where all the wealth comes from and everything. I said, do you know how many gold mines there are in France? I said, there's none. Everything you saw is from the rape and pillage of Africa, the Americas, of every colony that they went to and stole from. Slavery and gold of the people they oppressed. Don't be impressed by what money can buy from slavery. You should be ashamed of it. But Google's your friend. Find out what's going on. You can go past the murdocracy and go to the source. Find out, speak up, speak out, speak loudly for Palestine. Be uplifted by the unbreakable spirit, a nuclear armed state, aided and abetted by the entire West. 20,000 allegedly Hamas fighters, 406 days. 7 Hiroshima bombs have been dropped on Gaza, and the Palestinians have not surrendered, have not given up, have not stopped resisting. None of us can stop resisting. The fight will bring you amongst people that are like you and love us. So free Palestine from the river to the sea. Thanks for listening. Share the podcast. Be back next week with Rob and I.
You've been listening to a 3CR podcast. If you found it valuable, please consider donating or subscribing to support independent community radio. To find out more, go to 3cr.org.au.